ado, let's get started. I believe all those who will be supposed to attend tonight are already in attendance. So we'll get started. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So we will be discussing IELTS General Writing Task 1, which is going to be for about 20 minutes. As previously discussed, the IELTS Writing Task 2 is going to be for 40 minutes, where you have to compose about 250 to 270 words, and it needs to have a minimum of 4 paragraphs. For the IELTS Writing Task 1 General, it is comparatively easier, wherein you're not actually composing an essay. In place of that, you are going to follow simple correspondence. Okay, so if you are somebody who tends to send emails often on a daily basis, especially about social matters or matters pertaining to work, then writing task 1 will be a little easier for you. However, if your conversation is limited only to, let's say, conversations over social media, or you only exchange text messages in English and do not really have the opportunity to send emails often, then this is something that you will have to practice, especially if you're not using long and complete sentences. So you will be presented with a situation. This is, by far, I would say, considerably easier than compared to IELTS academic, because for IELTS academic, you will be provided with some sort of data, some sort of visual information, and based on what you see, you will be required to summarize it. However, for IELTS General, you're just given a situation. You're probably going to write an application letter or a complaint letter, any of the letters. And in this regard, you are to express yourself and also to indicate the intent, the purpose that you are composing the letter. So the assessment criteria, both for IELTS Task 1 writing and Task 2 writing, are the same. For Task 1 and Task 2, there are 4 criteria on which you will be evaluated. The first being task achievement. So task achievement just means that were you able to answer the question? Did you physically type in, or did you physically put in something that is read, that can be read and that can be seen on your answering script? That will indicate task achievement. Coherence and cohesion, which is the second criteria, it indicates how easy your writing task was to be read and how easily understood the whole task was. Okay, this is where we have the transitional verbs coming in. We are also talking about the linking words. We're also going to talk about how we are developing the ideas and so on. Next, we have lexical resource, which carries 25% of the total weightage of your scores. And lexical resources just means vocabulary. How good you are with your words, how good you are, and how wide and far-fetched is the range of your vocabulary. That would depend on lexical resources. This is why I always tell you to learn some synonyms, maybe 1 or 2 maximum per word, so that you have a variety and there is less chance of repetition of your ideas. Finally, the last and the most difficult component based on judgment would be grammatical range and accuracy. So here it evaluates how much of grammar you have used, as in, have you only used simple sentences, or did you make an effort to use present tense and perfect tenses as well as past tenses? Are you using continuous tense? Are your spellings correct? And how accurately are you actually using the different grammatical elements. All of this will decide your final score, especially in grammatical range and accuracy. The first two, it's fine. Task achievement and coherence and cohesion. This is easy to score. If you have put 150 words at least, at least 150 words on the question paper or the answering sheet, you were able to answer the question that has been asked, then it is easy for you to get that 25%. You already have it. Apart from this, if you make sure that what you have written is easy to understand and it is um, progressing from one idea to another, then also you tend to score a 25% easily on coherence and cohesion. The only two criteria where people, exam takers, tend to have or experience as a major hindrance would be lexical resources as well as grammatical range and accuracy. Again, this is because of the quality of the language that we use in our daily life, especially at workplace, or how limited the use of all the grammatical elements are on a daily basis. Okay, now we'll further take a look at what are the most frequently asked types of letters in an IELTS writing task 1. First and foremost, we have a letter of request. So this is a standard whenever you are to seek information or when you are asking for some sort of help from someone or from an organization, then we draft what we call as a letter of request. Most frequently asked would be the first one, letter of request. Next, we have letter of condolences. So this is sent to someone who has lost a family member or a relative. These are not so common anymore, okay, because now we do not engage or we do not practice sending letters of condolences, especially given the advent of social media and how fast instant messaging has become nowadays. However, that does not rule out the chance of not having it. There's always that possibility. Next, of course, we have a letter of appreciation. Letters of appreciation mostly indicate or commend the performance on a particular activity, perhaps, that you have completed, and you would like to give special thanks to the person or the people who were involved in that particular task. Next, of course, we have a letter of advice, feedback, or suggestion. So these types of letters are often written to your peers. Uh, you would write it to your friend, you would write it to a colleague, or you would write it to your advisor, seeking for any kind of help or any kind of insight on a particular topic. Last, of course, we have a letter of apology. This is when you want to apologize or you want to pay your respects to somebody where you have wronged them. So you would want to draft a letter of apology. On the contrast, if you are complaining about someone or you are expressing your displeasure about something, then we would compose what we call as a letter of complaint. Usually, a letter of complaint, the main intent is to show the manufacturer or the sender that you are dissatisfied with something and you are anticipating some corrective action to be taken. Okay, so that is what a letter of complaint is. Finally, let's first take a look at a sample question. So the sample question here is, you can see we have a question like this. This is usually how a standard task 1 question would look like. At the top, it would indicate that you have to spend about 20 minutes on this task. And then after that, you can see that there is a situation or you have the idea or the backdrop of, or the context rather, of your letter. In this particular instance, it is in of Lauren Breast University studying business administration. You want to apply for the post of quality assurance manager you've recently seen on the university's notice board. So this is the main context, okay? Usually we don't end up composing letters with no intent, with no purpose in mind. This indicates, or the statement at the beginning indicates what exactly is the background, okay? What is the prologue of the whole letter that you will be composing. Now, here it indicates you have to write a letter to Mr. Walker. So, usually, when you have to compose a letter for an IELTS exam, it is not, um, mostly it is not mentioned the names of the people that you will be addressing, but at the off chance that you have provided to you. So you can see we have 3 bullet points. It says give your reason for writing, tell about your education, describe your work experience, and why you would be suitable for the job. So these are the 3 things that you will be writing about, which also indicates that you will be having 3 distinct body paragraphs. Now, the number of body paragraphs would indirectly depend on the number of bullet questions that you will have for a writing task 1. Okay? It says we have 3 bullet points here, so it doesn't necessarily mean that you should have only 3 bullet points or 3 paragraphs. Sometimes you can merge 2 ideas or 2 different bullet questions and compose it in a single paragraph, but never all 3 bullet points going into 1 paragraph alone. Okay, that would take away the cohesion of your letter. Now you can see here, it is also indicated that you have to write at least 150 words. So here, observe how we have used, or how the question says at least 150 words. This indicates that this 150 words will be the minimum count. Okay, so that means you can go beyond 150, but as we had indicated last Friday, 270 being the cap for task 2. For task 1, it should remain maximum at 170 or 100. Introduce the idea, you discuss the questions that are given, and you round up everything within 170 words. Okay, so what is the proper structure, or what is the standard structure for composing a letter in task 1 general? So it's going to be like this. You're going to have your first paragraph, which is the introduction, meaning whatever statement, the backdrop that we had, the situation or the history behind why you're composing a letter, that you will introduce it in your first paragraph. You should also make it a habit to introduce yourself as well, because if you're just going to start your letter as I am writing to request or I am writing to apply, it will feel like it is insignificant. It doesn't have an introduction, or it doesn't really have a good opening line for it. So to avoid that, make sure you introduce yourself in the first paragraph, okay? When I say introduce yourself, don't go, the whole 9 yards explaining who you are, where you're from, what are you doing, what is your family history. None of that sort. You just have to mention your name, okay? For example, you can say, my name is such and such, and I am writing to apply for the position offered at such and such. Okay, that is all that you will be including in your first paragraph. Do not go into explaining anything in the first paragraph. You're only going to introduce the content and the intent of your letter. So next we have the middle portion, which will be considered as the body. We have three issues, similar to how we had three bullet questions. And what you are going to do is you're going to write about each bullet question in each paragraph. Don't worry about the size of the paragraph here because sometimes it could be about only 3 sentences or 4 sentences, and that's completely okay. But you've got to make sure that each paragraph is only answering one question. Okay? You shouldn't go around answering 2 bullet points if you don't know how to create cohesion between them. Finally, we have the last paragraph, which is the closing paragraph of the letter. And in the closing, what you are required to do is that you have to wrap up and also reiterate the purpose of your letter. For example, if you are applying for a job, if you are applying for any kind of part-timing or you are submitting something, you have to make sure that in your last paragraph, you are mentioning that or you are indicating or reminding the reader of the letter that you are submitting something or you have applied for something and would love to be considered for that position or whatever the opening is. Okay. Remember, you shouldn't sound authoritative. Rather, you should sound polite and you should be assertive, both at the same time. Okay. Polite assertion is what you have to go for, meaning you don't want to sound rude. The tone of your language that you'll be using should not sound rude. And at the same time, it shouldn't sound like you are pestering them. Okay, so there should be a balance between them. You maintain formality, yet at the same time, making sure that they remember or they are aware of what measures should be taken after seeing your letter. Okay, now, whenever you're composing a letter, there could be a chance that you're writing or you will be required to write either a formal letter or an informal letter. Now, the major difference between the two is that a formal letter, as the name indicates, will be used to address people that you are not acquainted with. Okay? So, long story short, it just means that for the people, let's say that you're applying for a job. Yes? If you're applying for a job, you potentially do not know the other person. You don't know your potential future sponsor. So in this case, you cannot have that personal connection with them. Okay, rather, you will be just indicating the intent, the purpose, the reason why you are writing, and end it. However, if there is a chance or if the question arises where you are writing a letter to a friend or you're writing it to your family member, in this case, it isn't formal anymore. It is informal because you know this person and you can relate or you can you can express your emotions with them. It would be pretty awkward. It would be weird if you are going to address a letter to your mom with, professional language. It doesn't really make sense. Same as when you are emailing or sending a letter to your future prospective boss, and it has all these short forms and it has typos in it, and it doesn't really sound like you are maintaining professionalism as a tone in your letter. That is going to kill the drive. Okay, so you need to know how or where, what kind of letter it is, so that you will know the appropriate wordings, you will know the appropriate structure that you will have to adhere to. So there's a table here that can be helpful for you to distinguish between a formal letter and an informal letter. So formal letters, you can see here it says does not use contractions. So contractions is one thing that you have to look out for when it comes to formal letters. Contractions are basically the short forms. Like here we have can't, won't, haven't. So instead of writing can't, won't, haven't, we'll use the full form cannot, will not, and have not. The primary reason behind this is that it maintains tone and it sounds more professional. Because you might have observed this amongst yourself as well, that if you receive a letter or you receive an email from a higher up, okay, let's say from an executive level, or we're talking, let's say CEO, managing director level, their letters or their memorandum will not contain a lot of contractions because this shows that they are in a hurry. And it also shows that it isn't refined. Okay? So you have to remember these things will be used if you are, speaking with a friend, or if you are having a normal chat with a family member, then it's okay to use contractions. And apart from that, I would say common sense, because here, for example, we have the word haven't. So haven't in itself is just one term. But if we're going to use the full form of it, have not, then we have two words being used. This way, you can run after the word limit, and also at the same time, it shows that your writing is uniform. Okay, so you just have to work smart, not hard, especially when it comes to task one writing. Okay, so hack your way through it, use the full forms, and this way you'll also be able to cover the word limit. There is no such restrictions for informal writing. You're allowed to use contractions here because we don't really use a lot of cannot, have not, will not, would not if we are having a conversation with someone that is dear to us. Okay, so you're allowed to use them. Now, the next thing is it avoids colloquialisms and never uses slang. So, what is colloquialism? Colloquialism is what we would term as the local English or the local language, and how it has adapted to the people living around them. Colloquium of various accents. We usually, and also like a mixture of two languages. For the people from the Philippines, we have Taglish. And then for the people who are from India, we have Hinglish. So what is this? We're combining two languages, Hindi and English, Tagalog and English. And we are, let's say, creating a new language altogether, which could be understood by local people, but not necessarily considered professional enough to be included in a formal letter. Okay, so avoid colloquialism and do not use slang. So, what is slang? Words like dude, what's up, all of those indicate that you are free. You're using the language with just short term, and it has a more personal connect. Words like those can be used in an informal letter where you're addressing a peer, you're addressing a sibling. That should be fine. Lastly, you have to remember the objective of a formal letter must sound more professional and less personal. You don't know the person on the other end. Henceforth, stick to your objective. Stick to the purpose why you are composing the letter. Okay, you don't need to get too personal. You don't need to divulge too much of information that can be deemed personal. Leave it to only the technicalities, the main things that you want to discuss. If it's about a job, talk only about the job. You do not have to introduce your family into it. if you are giving or if you are writing a complaint against someone, exclusively talk about the complaint, talk about the repercussions and how it has affected your daily life. Do not write about their character, the other person's character, the one that you are complaining against. Don't bring in your personal distaste here. Stick to the facts, stick to your aim, and only your aim. However, in an informal letter, you don't necessarily have one intent or one primary purpose in mind. Perhaps you're just going to offer some sort of advice, or you want to check something with someone, or you're going to request something. In such an occasion, it's okay to use personal tone, and in fact, it is appreciated that you use personal tone because when you're talking to a sibling, when you're talking to a friend, you don't really use the same language or the same vocabulary as you would use with your boss, right? With a boss, there's certain limitations. You cannot be free with your emotions, but with a sibling, it is the complete opposite. So learn how to differentiate between them. So as you can see, and as I had mentioned earlier, informal letters go to friends, to neighbors, and to younger relatives. Formal letters, however, is addressed to the company, to your boss, to an educational institution, to a government official, or something that is related to your profession and other requirements. Now we have a few examples given here. I have two examples or two samples rather, and you are required to identify based on the language that's used, based on the structure that has been implemented, on which one is formal letter and which one is an informal letter. Okay, so if you see the first sample here, it says, I am writing to request a reissue of the documentation that comes with your GDX 93 model coffee maker. Please allow me to describe my circumstances. So this is the first one. The second sample reads that I hope you and your team are doing well. You'll never guess what happened to me the other day. I misplaced the documentation for my GDX 93 model coffee maker. I'm writing to see if you would mind reissuing it to me. So you can see in the second one, there's a lot of I, you're actually addressing them as a person. And in the first sample that's given, we see an absence or we notice an absence or a lack thereof. So therefore, can you tell me the first sample or the second sample? Which one is a formal introduction?
Sample 1 is the formal letter. Sample 2 is the informal.
That is correct. Sample 1 is what you would follow and exercise if you were to compose a formal letter. Sample 2 is an informal letter because it shows that you have an emotional connect with someone and you're trying to use that as a favor towards something that you are asking. Okay, so this in itself will help you to identify and will also show you how rigid the structure is. Did you notice that? For sample 1, there's not really an indicator. You're going direct to the point. The main issue here being you have misplaced or you have lost the manual for the coffee maker. Okay, so you need or you're requesting for another one. So the first one, you can see that it is, you're trying to justify why you need an extra one. And in the second sample that's given, it just shows that, you have indicated you've misplaced it and you're hoping that they can issue you another one. Okay, now let's try to take another look at another two samples. The first sample says, please allow this letter to act as my gesture of thanks on behalf of my wife and I for the lovely evening you hosted last week. The second sample says, my wife and I would like to thank you for the wonderful party you threw last week. Okay, so from here, which one's formal, which one's informal?
Sample 1 is formal and sample 2 is informal.
Correct. Sample 1 is formal and sample 2 will remain informal. Always remember, and this is also a heads up for everyone actually, not just for your writings, but also when you do your speaking. When you are speaking on behalf of someone, on behalf of a group, okay? So for example, in the first one here, we're talking about a husband and wife, a couple that is thanking or expressing their gratitude towards an a lunch, or no, a dinner that was hosted by someone. Always remember to put the second party first when you are referring to yourselves, okay? Here you can see it says, on behalf of my wife and I. Never put yourself first, okay? If it's you and your sibling, you and your parents, you and your husband or wife, then never say, I and my brother. Instead, you will say, my brother and I. Okay, always remember this. It shows a sign of respect and it also shows a formality when you are writing and whenever you are addressing yourself as a group. Okay, so here, what gave away the fact that sample one is formal is because of words like hosted, gesture, on behalf of, and we have also the starting. Please allow this letter to act as, you don't really see this. Nobody really within the family would send something like this. Instead, they would send this. My wife and I would like to thank you for the wonderful party you threw last week. So you can see that the vocabulary that's used is not too uptight and it's not complex. It's something easily understandable. Henceforth, this is an informal letter context. Okay, so decide accordingly. Now, what can we do? Or, of course, when we are going to draft a letter, contrary to the letter that you have to compose, which I am not so sure if we've written letters at all, in especially this year, apart from emails, that is. Whenever you start a letter for an IELTS exam, you do not need addresses. Addresses aren't required. You don't need a subject line. You don't need a date line. Nothing of those. You will directly start with the salutation of the letter, okay? So salutation is just the starting, the introductory portion where we say, dear sir, or madam, and so on. Okay. If you are unaware of who you are addressing or whether the audience of your letter is going to be a male or a female, then you can go with dear sir or madam. However, if you know that the recipient of your letter is going to be a male, a man, then you can go with dear sir if the names have not been provided. You can also go with dear madam or dear ma'am if it is going to be a woman. Then you will close the letter. That means the last portion before you before you write your name or before you indicate your signature line, you can use the complimentary close yours faithfully. Okay. But I would prefer, and this is a personal preference that I have indicated to all students, I would prefer if you use yours sincerely. Okay, mostly letters that are formal in nature, especially for an IELTS exam, will close with yours sincerely. Yours faithfully is mostly seen in uh, informal letters, okay, because it shows again a personal connect. However, there's no restriction. You can either use yours faithfully or yours sincerely. Now, when you will be typing or whenever you will be writing sincerely, Be careful of the spellings as well. Okay, you shouldn't miss out on the E after the R for sincerely. Now, if we know the name of the recipient, then you can address them by their name. So if it's a gent, we say, Dear Mr. Green, yours sincerely. Dear Mrs. Green, yours sincerely. Dear Miss Green, yours sincerely. Now, what's the difference between Mrs. and Miss is that Mrs. would be used for married women and Miss would be used for unmarried women. Per etiquette, okay, this Mrs. and Miss is exclusively kept when you are sending invitations. So, heedless to the fact that whether the woman is married or not, we will stick to MS. Miss Green. Okay? Doesn't matter if the lady is married or not, if she's single, if she is married, if she is divorced, be whatever her status, you will address the person as Miss Green. Okay? MS, then you have to put a dot and then, write the name. Especially if the name is indicated. Okay, so you have to be very careful when you read your question. Sometimes it will just say, write a letter to your neighbor, write a letter to the editor of the council. Whatever it may be, if it just indicates the position, then you don't need to use a name. However, if it says, write a letter to Miss Green explaining the incident, then of course you have to use her name or whatever name has been provided. Okay, so Mrs., Miss, these will be again exclusively only for invitations that will be written. For correspondences, please stick to Miss Green. Okay, heedless to the fact that if she is married or if she is not. If it's a semi-formal letter where we are writing or composing a letter to a friend or to a colleague or to an acquaintance, then we can begin or we can refer to them or address them on first name basis. So you can say, Dear John, and then you can close your letter with best wishes or best regards. If you are requesting something, then you can use many thanks towards the end. Okay, these are the two options. It will be on first name basis. If you are, colleagues, or if you are roommates, or if you are co-workers or neighbors, on first name basis. And your complimentary close, you can either be best wishes, best regards, or many thanks. Finally, we take a look at an informal letter where, you're writing to family, friend, or somebody that you're super close with. Then again, you will start with hello, or you can say hi. And again, first name basis. Then your closing can be best wishes. It can be see you if you're planning to meet up with them. You can use complimentary closes like yours lovingly, yours truly, yours affectionately, yours faithfully. Okay, so these are some of the complimentary closes that you can use. Oftentimes, I address and I make sure that our students, if they're, going to receive an informal letter, then you will use yours truly. It's much easy to remember. Okay, but if you think you don't want to use yours truly, you can use best wishes. And then once you have indicated your complimentary close, for informal letters, sign off your name with just your first name. Okay, don't need to use the full name. If it's a formal letter, then yes, you need to use your complete name or your fake name that you will be using. Okay, so let's take a look at some letter openings. So first paragraph, as we say, it's the introduction or the opening of the letter. And you need to do two things. Number one, you're going to introduce yourself. And second, you will state the purpose of the letter. So let's take a look at some samples that you can use for opening. So as I had seen and noticed earlier, you said, starting the letter or starting the essay is a problem because we don't really know how to start it. That's fine. Now here, take a look at some prompts that you can use to start your letters. So take a look at this and perhaps you can note it down or you can take screenshots. Either works fine. And it depends on, the requirement. So you can see the first one says, I'm writing to inquire about. I'm writing to request. I'm writing to explain why. I'm writing to express interest in. I'm writing to inform you. I'm writing to complain about. After having seen your advertisement in so and so, I would like to. Then after having received your address from, and lastly, thank you for your letter regarding such and such. So these are some sample letter openings, okay? These openings will be used for formal letters. Okay. Now that we're done with this, you're further going to take a look at informal letter openings. So for informal letter openings, oops, so you can see here, very, very personal in nature, has a lot of personal touch. Says, hi, my name is Noah and I've been assigned your drama teacher. Or hello, my name is Julia and I am volunteer coaching student or conducting student excursions. Hi there. I hope you're enjoying your holidays, your trip, so on and so forth. And then last one says, hello, thanks very much for asking me to visit you. Okay, so if it's an informal letter, you can start with any one of these. Okay, you don't need to necessarily write, I am writing to. Just, directly start it off. So if we have the openings, let's take a look at the closings. Once you have discussed the matter, you have indicated what you want, what you expect from them, these are some of the closings. Okay, so closing means that you do not have any other thoughts to add after this here on out. This is the ending. You're completely closing the chapter and you have made sure that you have discussed everything that you wish to do. So here you can see if you require any further information, feel free to contact me. I look forward to your reply. I look forward to hearing from you and so on. So please take a look. Again, this is going to be based on the requirement. Okay, if your letter is a letter of request, then you cannot really start with, or sorry, you cannot end it with once again, I apologize for any inconvenience. Okay, you would rather use any one of the others, like I look forward to your reply. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you in advance. Any one of these. Okay, so again, based on the requirement. This is for formal letters. Informal letter closings. It sounds like you've completed, you've said your part in a story, and you're going to move on out in life. So that is what the closings for a letter in informal nature will sound like. So it says, anyway, I've got to go now. Write again if you need more information. Well, let me finish here. I'm eagerly waiting for your reply to this letter. Any one of these. Okay, this doesn't mean that informal letters can only be closed with these closings, okay? You can always use your own variation. Okay, we further take a look at a sample letter that has been composed. So here you can see at the top, we have what we call as the salutation. always, your letters will and will always begin with a salutation. So here we've used dear sir or madam. So as you can see, we've used the slash or we've used the oblique. You can use that, or if you want, you can use the word or. Then the next, we have our opening, right? So here it says, I'm writing to request you a refund, a recent online purchase I have made from your company. Allow me to elaborate on exactly why I would like this uh, course of action to be realized. So this is the introduction, the opening. You've introduced your idea, and you've also introduced the purpose of composing this letter. Okay, now the next is we have body paragraph 1. And in body paragraph 1, we're explaining the scenario. Before you mention why you need or what do you expect the company to do, which is, long story short, demanding a refund. Before you demand it, you explain the reason or the circumstances surrounding the refund. So here you can see in body paragraph 1, it talks about how the person whose name is Ryan, he purchased a laptop or a tablet computer rather from their website, okay, a company's website, which was intended to be given as a gift to a friend for their birthday. However, they have found out that the same tablet um, that is being gifted is actually provided by his office, and he's using one and he has one for himself. So since it doesn't have any utility with another person, that is why they want to return this tablet computer. Okay, so body paragraph 1, basically explaining why, what happened, explain in detail what went wrong or what went right, and how did we land in this dilemma. Then when you go on to body paragraph 2, okay, which is the second part of your body, here you are going to indicate what corrective measure you are expecting the company to take. In this situation, you can see that Ryan is requesting them to refund the money that was used for the tablet computer. Aside from that, he is also adding in the indication that he is aware of the refund and return policy. So that is what he has mentioned there. As you can see, he says, I understand that if I send the item by mail to you within 60 days of the purchase date, I can expect to have my account credited for the full purchase price. Okay, so here what he has done is he says first he is requesting for a refund, and at the same time he is also indicating that the company cannot refuse it from him because he knows their return and refund policy. Again, when you write a letter, especially when you're doing an IELTS exam, you probably cannot remember or will not remember, regarding return policies or refund policies. In place of that, you can mention anything else, okay, provided it has relevance to the question. Once that is done, we have the last part. What is the last part here? We have the closing or the complementary close. Again, complementary closes are used by us even in our emails nowadays. Okay, you're probably going to attach it together with the signature line or so on, but make sure you have a complementary close. Very important. It shows that nothing follows after that. That way you will have the chance to add and indicate that This is the end, and I'm going to close my letter. Finally, you have the name of the sender. So here, this person, Ryan, has made a mistake. Since this is a formal letter, they have failed to use their full name here. So on grounds of that, they will be, or examiners will be deducting scores. Okay, so here in this scenario, you will be losing points because you have only indicated your first name. Okay, so this is the structure. As you can see, nothing goes to the right side, everything begins against the margin. There is no indentation, absolutely not required, because that could mess up with your it could mess up with your um letter, especially when you're writing by hand. I know during school days we were told that you have to leave 2 finger space, or you need to leave 1 finger length space before you start the next paragraph. None of that is necessary. In place of that, what you can do, however, is leave a line to indicate that it is the onset of the next paragraph. Okay? Be it you're writing task 2 or writing task 1, to differentiate between paragraphs easily, make sure to leave a line in between. Okay? Now, one thing you have to remember, if you look here at the top towards the salutation, there is a comma immediately after. Okay, dear sir or madam, dear Mr. John, whatever it is that you are composing, make sure that there is a comma that follows. If there is no comma that follows, then you will lose points there. And also, with your closing, in your complimentary close here, look at the bottom of your screen. We have yours faithfully. So in this portion, you can see he's just mentioned yours faithfully, but it doesn't have a comma there. So since there is an absence of a comma, this indicates that he will be losing points. Okay, so always remember, salutation and closing both will have a comma that will immediately follow. Aside from that, be careful of your capitalization. You need proper capitalization. You need to use target vocabulary. Okay. Now, since we're talking about a tablet computer here, make sure you will use terms that is related to that kind of electronics or appliances. And also when we are talking about refunds or returns, what are the main words that we would use? Try to take note of those as well. Okay, and observe how it was easy to read and easy to understand, and it didn't have any loopholes in between. This is what you should also mimic in your writing task 1. Okay, when I say mimic, it doesn't mean 100% you're going to copy it as is, but this is the standard. This is what is expected from you in an exam. Okay, at first it might feel daunting, it might feel too intimidating, because of course it has a lot of words, and it has a lot of things that you can't really perfect overnight. This was a review, so just make sure that you have an idea what to write and you're expecting from you should you require a high band score. Okay, so this is the standard structure of a task 1 general letter. Now, let's take a look at the request letter questions, samples that you can encounter. So always, your questions will begin with, you should spend about 20 minutes on this task. Okay, so here the question says, write a letter to a company asking for a refund for something you bought from them online. In your letter, include what you bought, what the problem is, and why you want a refund. So this is basically the sample question for the standard sample that we had seen previously, the letter, okay? Wherein Ryan is requesting to refund the laptop that, tablet computer that he had purchased, okay? So notice how the question doesn't really indicate that it is a tablet computer, right? It only says that you are asking for a refund for something you bought from them online. Okay, so again, the possibilities are limitless. You don't have to stick to just tablet computers. You can talk about books, you can talk about clothes, you can talk about shoes, you can also talk about kitchen appliances and so on. Now, when you choose a particular item, also make sure that you are creative enough with why you are requesting for a refund, okay? Usually, if the item is broken, you will not be given a refund. In place of it, you will be reimbursed. You will be replaced or you will receive a replacement. So use the logic that we have for everyday occurrences, especially when it comes to writing your letters. Okay. You don't have to imagine too hard. Maybe you have encountered this situation in real life. You can write about that situation as well. But be mindful of the tenses that you will be using. Okay, if it's present tense or if it's past tense, be mindful of what you are expecting from them. And lastly, be mindful of the word limit. So here it says, write at least 150 words. So when you say at least 150 words, it means minimum of 150. Do not fall below that. Okay? Always remember, task one, your cap would be 170 words, 180 if you're pushing it a little too far. Now we have another sample request given here. So it says, you're traveling and need someone to do you a favor while you are gone. Write a letter asking a neighbor or friend for help. So this is the statement. This is the scenario. Now you need a help from either a friend or from your neighbor because you are traveling. Okay, and you have some, let's say, some work or some task that is left, and you can't prolong it or you cannot delay it. Think of some possible tasks or think of possible commitments that will require you to ask for a favor. Can you name a few reasons why, when you're traveling, you would have to or you would be required to ask a favor from a neighbor? What are some possible reasons? Plants. Since we all live in apartments, we tend to have the interest, we tend to adapt to a keen interest of having plants in our house. So when you are traveling, it's not like you can, travel with your plants. That's impossible. And at the same time, it is impossible for you to relocate your plants. You can't really take out every single one of them and put it in a different place. Doesn't make sense. So instead of that, what do? We end up asking roommates or we end up asking our neighbors to help us out with watering plants, right? Since they cannot live longer, they can't sustain and survive on their own. We're not in the, in the rainforest or in the jungle. So in that particular scenario, you might end up asking for a favor. Are there any other instances that you can think of which requires you to ask a favor from a friend or a neighbor?
For
Or
home shifting, we can request, we can ask a favor.
home sitting, yes, correct. Then let's say if you have pets at home, pets that cannot travel with you. Like for example, if you have an aquarium, you have a fish tank, and of course you can't really take your fishes with you. So you want somebody to feed them and to make sure that their water levels are intact. Okay. There are multiple scenarios, there are multiple reasons why you would end up asking a favor from a friend or a family member. Just choose one that you are familiar with. Choose one that you can write about in details. Choose one which you might have experienced before, because this way you won't have to think too hard and think too long about what to write and what not to write. You can always include instances from your real life, okay? Make sure that you are converting it according to the needs of the question. Here, as you can see, we have three body paragraphs. Sorry, three bullet points. So there are chance, or there's a possibility that this can have three body paragraphs. But if you feel three is too much, then you can group um, one of them, with two. You can answer two bullet questions in one paragraph, depending upon how you will be clubbing the answers. Okay, again, here it says write at least 150 words. So you know the drill. Less than 150 will not be good. You just have to make sure it's between 150 to 170 words. Okay, now a quick recall for the letter sample that we have taken a look at. First, we have the introduction, and then in the middle, we have our body paragraphs, which is, for easy reference, you will write one paragraph per bullet question. And once you have done that, we go into the last paragraph where you are reiterating a desired course of action, and at the same time, you are thanking the sender. The receiver. Okay, so this is again the structure for a letter. Make sure you know this and make sure you will adhere to this whenever you compose a letter. Finally, the introduction. As you can see here, we have a sample question again. It says, write a letter to a company asking for a refund for something you bought from them online. Okay, so you're going to draft the introduction. Mostly, the introduction is the subject of the letter. Okay, that means the primary intent or the primary purpose. In the introduction, you need to state why you are writing. Okay, so same as the first one, we just paraphrased it here. And then not more than 2 sentences. Please note this. Introduction should not be more than 2 sentences. Maximum 2 or 3. Okay, now let's take a look at the question that's given there, and you're going to compose an introduction. Okay, so what you're going to do is you are going to fill in the blanks using the given words. So we have the words given, we have elaborate, recent, action, from, and request. Okay, so go ahead and take some time and fill in the blanks for me, please. Take a look at the 5 words, and I want you to fill up the 5 spaces. Let me know once you're done. So elaborate is the synonym of explain. That's what elaborate means. Okay, good. We done? Not yet. Okay, let's go ahead now and try to check your answers here. So number one, it says, I am writing to blank. What is number one?
Request.
Yes, that's right. Number one will be request. I am writing to request you you refund a blank online purchase. What's number two?
From online.
Here it will be recent online purchase. Yes, recent online purchase I have made
From
from your company. Yes, number three will be from your company. Allow me to, okay, elaborate, correct? Allow me to elaborate on exactly why I would like this course of, last one?
Action. Action.
Action. That's right. Last one will be action, to be realized. Okay. So these words indicate, what is this? Can you give me, or can you tell me, is this a formal introduction or is this an informal introduction?
formal.
Correct.
Informal.
This is formal. Okay. Always remember, if we use words like I am writing to, if we start with I am writing to, and if we see words like allow me to, or we use words like elaborate, and we're using full form, then it will be a formal letter. But the main giveaway is how we started it. I am writing to. Okay, so since we are starting it this way, then this will be considered as a formal letter. Okay, so for paragraph one, we are going to use and we are going to explain in detail the scenario of what went wrong. So here you can see this sample paragraph uses some strong words like unfortunately, appears, empathize, having a tablet of my own. So all of these indicate that, unfortunately, and words like appears and empathize, these aren't quite often used. But if you use them, you have the potential to gain a 7 or a 7.5 even in your writings. Okay, so try to use such words. It will just help you to climb up the lexical resource ladder. Then when we go on to body paragraph 2, we're indicating no here what we want from them. What are we expecting from them? So here we are using words like thus. You can use words like henceforth, therefore, any one of these words. And then we have terms like I understand, account credited, full purchase price. These words, account credited, full purchase price, these terms are target vocabulary. So since we are using target vocabulary related to returns and refunds, this will help him earn extra points. Okay. Again, remember that if your letter is a request letter, then it shouldn't sound like a letter of order. It shouldn't sound like a letter of complaint, none of that sort. Remember, you have to be polite, you have to be concise, and at the same time, you have to be professional. Okay, make sure you are asserting what you need from the company. Okay. Now, if we take a look at the complete letter, so this is the complete letter that we have. And here you can see we have after the salutation, we have a comma. Then in the last also, once we have used our complementary clause, we've used a comma. The person now has used a full name over there. So something you have to remember. If it is a formal letter, it ought to be complete name. But if it's an informal letter, we go on first name basis. Okay. Now, we have a question here. right? You're traveling and need someone to do you a favor while you are gone. I will be giving this as homework. So I want all of you here to take a screen clipping of this particular slide, and you will be required to compose this letter. Okay, again, the ideas are limitless. The sky is your limit. Whatever it is that you want to write about, provided that it can be asked as a favor while you are away. Okay, so some examples that we took a look at would be house sitting. Someone said looking after their pets and looking after the plants. Or let's say, maybe a package is arriving, so you want them to receive the package or receive the order, anything. Okay? Think about things or think about activities that cannot be skipped at all, that cannot be avoided or delayed, and write about it. Okay, so this is again going to be your homework for Friday. You need to make sure you bring the 2 essays plus 1 letter on Friday. Spend about 20 minutes on this, and you need to make sure that you are writing at least 150 words. If you are using a computer, if you're planning to take up a computer delivered exam, and yes, you can use the WordPad. I wouldn't say use Microsoft Word because Microsoft Word will help you with vocabulary and with spellings. I want you to use Notepad or WordPad, okay? Since these do not have any indication if it's right or wrong, you're all on your own over there. Okay, 150 to 170 words. Remember to be truthful with yourself regarding the starting time and the ending time of the letter. Okay, so I will not show you the sample here because this will be part of your homework. So remember to do this and bring it with you on Friday. Okay, so now that we have said that, I believe I have on my part completed explanation for the letters. Now it's your turn. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask me your questions regarding writing task 1. Okay, so what are the questions that you have for me tonight? We do not have questions tonight? No questions at all? If you're asking me, remember to unmute
I have
yourself.
one question.
Yes? Yes,
After
sure.
this, yours faithfully or yours sincerely, then do we
Mm-hmm.
have to write our name, full name?
Yes, you have to write your name, but you have the choice to use a fake name, a pen name, or an alias, perhaps, if you don't want to be using your name. It doesn't matter. There's no rule in the British Council that you should only use your name, but for the sake of, not
Okay.
wasting time, you can use your full name if you wish. Unless, of course, the question indicates to address yourself as a particular person. Questions here?
Yes, ma'am. I have one question. While
Sure, go ahead.
changing while changing a paragraph, we have to
Mhm.
start from starting line or middle of the line.
No, nothing from the middle of the line, everything from the margin. No need to indent, no need to, start indentation in it. It isn't required as long as you will leave 1 line after every paragraph. That in itself will be enough because when you're going to start from the margin, it's going to look uniform and it is also going to look neater compared to starting from the middle of the line or leaving some space and starting.
Oh,
So long story short, start from the margin for all the paragraphs.
okay. Thank
All right, good. Very well. Further, any more questions?
Ma'am, for this informal letters also, are we supposed to write our names or is
Oh,
just
yeah.
the nicknames are fine?
For informal letters, you will go on first name basis only. You can just use one name. Or if
Mm,
you have a nickname, you can use the nickname as well. That should be fine.
okay, so it will be like in informal letters, you're addressing the person with his name and your loving, your sincerely or faithfully, and
Mm-hmm.
your name, right?
Correct.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Alright. Good. Very good. Further, any more questions? No worries. No more. Okay. Sounds like we don't have any questions, but I hope it is clear that you have three submissions for me on Friday. Yes, you're going to submit two essays for me plus one letter. Okay, so for those who did not attend last Friday, it's okay. Can send in only this letter. The essays, of course, you can find them online. Okay. Regarding the listening test, I had sent the listening test together with the questions. So make sure you download it using the link because the link will expire if you need them. Okay, they're not mandatory to be downloaded. Okay, further questions? Oh, it's complete radio silence there. Some just background noise right now. Okay, whatever it may be, make sure if you have any questions regarding your writing task general, bring your questions and your concerns to me on Friday afternoon, inshallah, before we start our class on Unit 2, where we will be discussing about education. I will be answering your questions, okay? And while you will go on your break after, having half of the session, I will be also taking a look at your essay submissions and your letters. And as much as possible, I'll try to provide you with feedback on the same day itself. Okay?
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
All right. Okay. So if we do not have any more questions for me, let me go ahead and hang on, let me stop recording for a moment. Mhm. Okay.